Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center. Welcome to Knife AQ number 71, the knife series, where I answer all your questions whether they're sharp or dull. And today, amongst our questions, we are answering the most frequently asked question of all time. Let's get into it.
You would have thought we'd get to it before now.
Meh. All right, for those of you new to this series, here's the deal. We check out our comments section below these YouTube videos and we pick out some of our favorite questions to answer in future episodes. So if that's what you want to do, if you want a chance to have one of your questions featured in this series, drop them in the comments below and maybe we'll get you picked. Today though, we're starting off with a combination, an amalgamation if you will, of several different users' questions coming together, because even though we call this FAQ, not all of the questions we answer are typically frequent. This one, however, is coming in all the time. Whether through customer service, our emails there, or the comments here, or our social media messages, I've combined you all into one entity. Amalgam asks, what is the sharpening angle for X knife? Get it all the time. And there's a lot in a way there's a lot to get into, in a way there isn't. If you're answering this question, or if you're asking this question, I think it's oftentimes motivated by you want to maintain the angle. You don't want to ruin the knife by changing the angle. Well, good news is, even if you change the angle, you're probably not going to ruin the knife. Unless you do like a horribly bad grinding job and you grind a bunch away, but you could do that at any angle. So if you're not sure, but you're afraid to sharpen, don't worry about it, and just go for a 20-degree angle per side. If you just are going to remember one measurement, that's the measurement for it to be. There's obviously plenty of knives out there that are sharpened at different angles, but this one is going to work across the broad spectrum of things. Kitchen knives, EDC knives, outdoor heavier use knives. They'll get you right in a good place. If you want to go a little further, if you want to be a little more kind of precise, unfortunately, most manufacturers don't actually publish the specification for the actual sharpened edge angle. Sometimes you do, most of the time you don't. One key example where you do, Japanese style kitchen knives. Oftentimes you'll see these sharpened with a 15-degree edge per side, as opposed to a more typical 20 that you might see on a Western style kitchen knife. Shun actually publishes a 16-degree measurement per side. So they're one of the oddballs. Can you come back in and sharpen it at 15 degrees? Yeah. Can you go in and sharpen it at 20 degrees? Yeah, you can do that too. It's not going to be quite as laser slicey, but it's going to be just fine. Now, another reason why I think a lot of manufacturers don't specify that their edge is exactly like a 20-degree edge is there's a little bit of variability sometimes depending on their process. And also sometimes I think some manufacturers come in a little bit more acute. They might have like an 18 or 19-degree edge sharpened in. Reason for that being it gets them, if they're going to err on one side or the other, they would like to err a little bit on the thinner side, and that's also going to make it easier for you to sharpen when you come in with that 20-degree angle when you're sharpening it at home. Win-win. Now, if you do want to be more precise, if you want to make sure you're matching that angle precisely, or at least as close as you can, there's two things you can do. One we actually showed on our YouTube, one of our YouTube shorts a couple of weeks ago. Take a black Sharpie marker or similar, doesn't have to be the name brand in this case, and draw or cover the edge of your knife with that Sharpie, and then go in on your lightest stone, like your honing rod, and take a few swipes. If you've removed that Sharpie marker consistently along the whole edge, you know you're on the right spot. If you're off, even if you're too steep and you're only removing it right at the edge, because you're using your finest stone in this situation, you're not really removing a lot of metal, so you're not ruining anything there. That, if you're doing a freehand system, can get you set at the right angle. Other thing you can do, if you want just a reference point, go with something like an edge angle finder. This guy right here is from Audacious Concept. This is the DogTag 3.0 angle finder. $15 for these guys. And I think Actually, we don't have what it's made out of on the site, but I think they're titanium. Doesn't matter too much, I guess. Anyway, they're pretty lightweight. Now, what this is, you can see right at the top, you've got some pre-cut angles labeled there. And what you'll do with that is, you take your EDC knife, whatever it happens to be. And I like to do this with some light shining behind it. It makes it a little easier to see. You just bring this guy in. I happen to know that this ZT should be right around 20 degrees, so I'll check with the 20-degree mark and see if I see any light on the actual edge itself or not. And yeah, it looks pretty close. That'll get you in a good ballpark reference-wise. And for most EDC knives, you're just going to be using this 15 and 20-degree side to kind of check anyway. These are pretty cool, and you've got a couple extra functions on this one too, versus some other angle finders out there, such as a bit driver there and a bottle opener, which makes it a multi-tool, and ruler functionality, millimeters on one side and inches on the other. Pretty cool, and a few different colors to be had. Obviously, that only gives you 5-degree steps. If you really want to make sure you're right on, an adjustable angle sharpening system, something with infinite adjustability like this WorkSharp Precision Adjust, which comes in about 50 bucks, is another great way to go. Because you'll have your knife clamped into the clamp here. You can still do the Sharpie trick if you want, especially on something that like this shim that might have a very thin edge. So you can either use that Sharpie or you can just go visually until adjust this until it's sitting right perfectly in line with that edge. There's no kind of clicks or detents in this. It's literally infinitely adjustable, so it can be 17.5 degrees or whatever that factory edge happens to be if you're truly concerned about it. But as I mentioned earlier, you probably don't really need to be concerned about it. Don't be afraid to sharpen it at an angle that's quote unquote wrong, because it's going to be fine. You're not going to ruin it, I promise. Maybe I shouldn't promise that.
Yeah, don't make promises on the internet.
But you know what I mean. You guys take my meaning. Just get out there and enjoy your knives, and when it's time to sharpen, figure it out. Because the more you do it, the easier it's going to get, and the more confident you'll be. And then maybe we can just send this segment of the video to folks answering this question. Because really, it's hard to say with any certainty when you say, "What's the angle on this condor?" Can't tell you. But hopefully this helps.
There's a good chance it's an acute angle.
Likely. Some of them are kind of ugly though.
Wow.
As opposed to, good looking, cute things.
I don't edge shame.
Next question, shall we? Which comes from Christina Gagnon, or Gagnon, not sure. Gagnon? I am curious as to where on the knife manufacturers measure the blade length. Is it from the tip to the back of the cutting edge, or is it from the tip to the very beginning of the scales, or is it from the tip to the very end of the blade that is hidden inside the handle scales? Inquiring minds would like to know, or maybe just me. It's not just you. This is actually another very frequent question that we get, and it's a question without a good answer. It's 2 questions in a row here without very good answers, and that's because there is no standard that the whole industry follows. Different manufacturers are going to measure their certain way. And I can't even tell you what all of them are because some of them seem very inconsistent. Which is why on our site, what we like to try and do is we'll give you 2 measurements. We'll give you a sharpened edge measurement as well as a tip to leading edge of the handle measurement where we can. Sometimes when things are up for like pre-order before things have actually been released, we have to rely on a manufacturer's specification, and that's where things get a little weird. Another thing that makes things complicated is not all states or jurisdictions define blade length the same way. So now you're adding a complete other can of worms. So I know why this is important. You want to make sure the blade you're going to have in wherever you live is going to be legal, right? Most people care about that anyway. Some aren't going to care, and that's, you do you.
We're not lawyers.
As always, caveat, we're not lawyers. But to kind of illustrate that, I will share kind of, my favorite thing, not necessarily my favorite thing, but I'm going to share with you Rhode Island's laws. Again, caveat, we're not lawyers. So Rhode Island has a law against concealing anything with a blade over 3 inches. And they actually define blade length. Not all places That's the other thing. The places that do define blade length are not always consistent with the neighboring jurisdiction, and not all places do define blade length because they think, oh, maybe it's common sense. The more you look at it, there's clearly no common sense or not even a consistent way to measure things. And this is the perfect example why. So Rhode Island says blade length is determined by measuring from the end of the handle where the blade is attached to the end of the blade. And now I will share with you a knife that breaks their definition. Let's say you want to carry something like an SE Azula, which, unlike most folders out there and most other fixed blades, this whole genre of knife doesn't have any attached handle. This is ostensibly a sub 3-inch blade. SE themselves list 2 7/8 of an inch, which brings you a little bit past the tip of the finger guard here. Sharpened edge itself is 2.5 inches. So logically, hey, that's a 3-inch blade, isn't it? But where do we measure where the handle attaches? Under the law, it's a little unclear. So maybe we consider, hey, this finger guard, that's part of the handle. So right in front, right where you stop holding the knife, anything in front of that, we'll say that's the blade in this case. Great. Is this definitive legal defense strategy? We're not lawyers, again, absolutely not.
Plus, I can defeat that with a pinch grip.
So yeah, this is just for illustrative purposes here. Now, same blade shape, SE Azula 2. Now what do we do? Now that we have these handle scales attached to it. Now we do have handle scales. The blade itself did not change at all. But if we measure from the leading edge of those handle scales up to the tip, we are over 3 inches now. Furthermore, it says, where the handle, or let me quote it, where the blade is attached. Or sorry, the end of the handle where the blade is attached. Probably means the leading edge, but it's attached right here where these bolts are. Do we measure back to there? Either way, we're over 3 inches now. But what if I take the handle scales off? Are we fine again? I'm not sure. What if we wrap it in paracord? Like we have this Actinon Verba P100 right here. Is the paracord now the handle? In which case this 3-inch blade, which, spec on this says 3 inches, and that's the sharpened edge in this case because there's no other logical place to measure blade length here. Now do we have to go back to where the paracord is? Or do we take the paracord off? Or because the hole through the handle is back here, that's where the paracord attaches? Would that be it? I don't know. It's one of those tough things.
This is what keeps lawyers busy.
This is what keeps lawyers in their Mercedeses and Rolls Royces and all of that. Actually, no, because knife people don't have that. We don't have that kind of money to spend usually, do we? I certainly don't.
Not on lawyers.
We're dealing with a J-body driver over here, so clearly it's beyond our budget.
I don't have a single car under the legal drinking age.
All that to say is it's hard to know, and it's hard to trust every spec you see on the internet. If you're able to get somebody to actually measure a thing before you buy it, great. I will tell you, when we measure things here, and we try to measure everything we get in actuality rather than relying on all manufacturers' specs, but we don't always get those up to date as quickly as we would like either. But when we have measured a thing, we're going to give you the sharpened edge, and we're going to give you a measurement from the tip to the leading edge of the handle. Even though on our website this still says 2.875 inches on this Azula 2, because common sense doesn't always fit into perfect categories. I'm not sure how to end this question other than hope that helps. I think I did answer your question. There is no standard way that all manufacturers measure it. So this is kind of just a rant, I guess, on the way knife laws don't keep up with reality all the time.
Write to your delegates.
Support knife rights. Donate there. I do. Well, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but I like that organization very much. Shall we move on to our next question?
Might as well.
Oh, wait, no, I have another thing here that breaks. I forgot to talk about this Bestech. This is the Bestech Goblin. Here's the leading edge of the scales. Here's the tip. This is a quote unquote 2-inch knife. It's a cool 2-inch knife. If we take, I just have this, clear Westcott ruler here. I had to think of the word. If we hold the blade kind of how naturally, what feels like a straight line, then yes, we are right about at 2 inches. But we start rotating it this way, I can get this to almost 2.3 inches long, depending on how you measure it. Does it make sense, common sense, to measure it this way? No. But according to a letter of the law, I wouldn't want that to be my legal remedy either. So I guess we'll go to our next question. Sorry, folks. X Little Country X asks, how do you see it? I just started a new job that involves cutting open plastic, quote unquote, canvas bags. And I have that I heard this finger/sharpening choils get snagged up in the fibers. Yes, absolutely possible. What would you recommend? I can't carry a fixed blade. Also, I do detailing on the side and I can't really use a knife with a pocket clip. So I'd like a suggestion for that too, please. Bonus points if you can find one knife for both jobs. So I'm assuming, you just say detailing, I'm assuming car detailing perhaps. So I'll assume that for my answer here. And he didn't give me a budget either, so I'll give you a more affordable one and a more premium, more expensive option here. Something about this type of task says like Wharncliffe style-ish blade to me, and the natural thought there is going to be something like the Cold Steel Tough Light. But with that sharpening choil there, you do run the possibility of it getting snagged up in fibers. If you push in too far, they can get caught in that little section, and that ruins your day, or at least ruins your good feelings about a cut. But there is another cold steel that I think would make a good choice on the budget side of things. This is their Kiradashi for $35. And you do have a slight choil here. It's not the same kind of sharpening choil that you get on that Tough Light though. It's very gentle. So if you were to happen to cut past something, as you pull out with it, it's gonna slide very easily back onto the edge. And that's one way one type of folding knife construction that'll get around the issue you're having. I'll show you another one with my second recommendation. Beyond that, I think this knife is, well, first of all, it just screams to me as a great utility knife. Any kind of heavier jobs like that, crafting stuff, construction, work environment, feels awesome for that sort of thing. We got a 2.5-inch blade. It's 403/4 stainless, so it's nothing spectacular, but it is very durable and very easy to maintain. I really like the way they're doing their stone-washed finishes these days as well. They look great. And I know you said you couldn't use a pocket clip because of the detailing side of things. Easy enough to take your clip off of pretty much any knife out there, and then you have that option in other environments if you want. But with this knife, there might be a fighting chance you'd be able to use this knife with the clip because it's a plastic clip essentially. It's the same Grivex material as the rest of the knife. No sharp edges, it's probably not gonna scratch. If you're working around like leaning over the exteriors of cars, it might scuff a little bit. But like I said, I wanted to give you a fighting chance of being able to maybe use the clip in your environment. If not, take it off, no big deal. The whole rest of the knife is lightweight, it's gonna carry easily, but I love the strength of the triad lock on these guys as well. It's gonna open very easily with either hand. The pocket clip is not reversible, so that's not ambidextrous, but if you have that taken off anyway, this is gonna be perfect no matter which hand you need to use for it. All right, for a slightly fancier version, or slightly fancier option, I should say, I've got a US-made knife for you to check out, and that's the Manix 2 Lightweight, specifically the lightweight version of this knife from Spyderco. So standard versions of this start at about $115. Those come with a BD1N stainless steel blade. This particular version has one of the Spyderco's, not one of their proprietary steels, their proprietary steel Spy 27, which performance-wise should get you somewhere in the ballpark of like the S30, S35 family of steels. And even though this is not a true Wharncliffe, I've always felt kind of their leaf-shaped blades here behaved a little bit like Wharncliffe's in how you actually interface with them, how you interface with your cutting medium. But you have a little more belly. Reason I recommend this is because it does a thing that a lot of Spyderco's do that is going to help you with that sharpening choil issue. No sharpening choil, they just have very crisp plunge lines here, so that as you're going into your cut, if you move past it, those shoulders can actually keep what you're cutting from jumping up past that. It's not impossible for it to happen, but that's gonna help there. If it does jump over, you might get caught up a little bit, but this is kind of one of the other ways that you can get around that issue. Different from that Kiridashi that we just looked at, but both are going to be valid. I also recommend the lightweight version of this knife specifically because it has that wire pocket clip. Again, still might be too much for your needs, and if you need to take the clip off for your detailing gig, that's fine too, but maybe this will work for you. Maybe not. Rest of the knife, we've got FRCP handles. It's another plastic material. You've got an ambidextrous lock, which is nice. Very easy blade to open, even if you're wearing gloves, thanks to that oversized hole there. In fact, both of these knives are gonna be quite easy to open with gloves. You've got those nice big thumb studs on the Kiridashi. Yeah, I think either one of these should work for you pretty well. And if you have any more elaboration on what the quote unquote canvas you're cutting, let us know in the comments. I'm slightly concerned and worried that you put that word in quotation marks.
My first thought was grain for beer.
But that would be
Those are kind of like plasticky canvas bags.
He did say plastic canvas, so it's like the plasticky fiber things.
That's my guess.
Let us know in the comments. Last main segment question here comes from Tyler Wascom. Hey Dave, how you doing? Doing well, thanks for asking. Have a question about work knives. I'm an electrician and I'm looking for a tough fixed blade around or under the $100 mark. Any suggestions? I do have one. Keeping in mind that I am not an electrician, I don't know what specifically you need in terms of size or other blade shapes or features, but coming in at about $99, I gotta think about the Gerber LMF as a choice. Now these are very rugged knives. They're not issued to any like military units out there, but there's a lot of published history of usage of this knife in the armed forces. Made in the USA, thick 420HC steel blade with a saber grind there with flat geometry on the ground bevels themselves. Very durable. You've got serrations there, which should help you rip through some kind of heavier materials if you need to. Again, don't know specifically what you need for your particular electrician's gig, but the reason particularly that this knife comes to mind is they talk about this as having an electrically insulated handle. There is a metal plate here at the back, or a metal striking point, but it is isolated from the end of the tang. They're not connected. And the reason for that, as it was originally envisioned, is this might be used for pilots' escape from a cockpit. If they're ripping through the fuselage and they hit a live wire, you don't want to worry about getting shocked. I've heard about demolition crews using this for the same reason, for that electrical insulation between your hand and the blade itself. So it does that. It is extremely durable. We've got a sheath around here somewhere. There's a lot of sheath attachment options to it. I think it's back behind me in a box, so I can't reach it at the moment. Check these out. It's right in the price range. It has that electrical capability. And let me know if that is at all the style of knife that is going to be helpful to you or not. I'm always keen to learn more about other uses out there that I don't know about yet. Helps me with these questions too. So thank you for that question. Which brings us to our lightning round for today. First questions from Dustin E. Hey DCA, I know you mentioned, oh yeah, I should mention that all of these lightning round questions are kitchen knife questions from our last week's video. Dustin E says, I know you mentioned kitchen knives should ideally not go in the dishwasher. I would assume this means we should only wash them by hand in the sink, but how do I scrub them when they have food stuck on? I always feel like I'm going to cut my hand or the washcloth or the sponge, and it's somewhat awkward to use a scrub brush on a knife. Is there a method or tool that works well for scrubbing knives by hand without as much risk? First thing you can do if you've got stuck on foods is, get a little water on it, preferably with some soapy water. That can loosen things up before you go on it. And this may not work for everyone, but I'll tell you what I do. I actually use a stiff bristled brush myself to clean my kitchen knives most of the time. And I use the cutting board as part of my cleaning technique. Because if you're cutting something with a knife, you're using a cutting board, right? You're not doing it on a countertop or a plate or any of that nonsense, right?
I throw it in the air and chop it.
Cool. Take your cutting board, lay the knife on it right about like so the edge is kind of pointed down, not so that you're cutting into it, but so you can scrub away from the edge very easily and have it supported at the same time. Works really well for me. Hopefully it works well for you too. Pretty easy. Yeah, I just use a stiff bristled brush, and if I need to get it wet to kind of loosen up some hard stuck-on bits, just a little bit of soapy water. Next question here, Pinky 2019. Is D2 steel okay for food prep even though it is rust prone? So I wouldn't say that D2 steel is rust prone. It is semi-stainless after all, which means it's not as stainless as a stainless steel blade, but it also means it's not as rust prone as a carbon steel blade. That said, we've been using carbon steel blades for centuries in the kitchen. Of course they're fine for food prep, absolutely. I mean, you can still even buy brand new kitchen knives today, from budget-oriented stuff all the way up to super expensive stuff made out of carbon steel. This one right here is a really cool one. It comes in about 49 bucks. This is the Kanetsune two-tone Santoku right here. We've got a carbon steel core on this blade. No problems. Still shouldn't put it in the dishwasher because then you could rust away on that. Not to mention you're probably gonna screw up the handles, but yeah. With any knife, whether it's carbon steel, D2, or a stainless steel, just keep it washed, keep it clean and dry, and you're gonna be good to go. Last lightning round question comes from Playtax Jazz. Dishwashers get hot fast and then cool down pretty quickly. This may not cause a knife to crack, but it can work on annealing the tempering of the metal. When you find your knife not holding an edge like it used to, or see that it has a bit of a curve it didn't used to have, you might ask yourself how many annealing cycles it has been through in the dishwasher. Just saying. So this one's actually, I think, a pretty not infrequent misconception, I'd say. Yes, the heat can be harmful to a knife if you put it in the dishwasher, more so to the handles and any adhesive that might be in there. But the temperatures most dishwashers reach top out, I mean, I'm talking like top out at like 180 degrees, which is not enough to anneal steel. Even simpler carbon steels, you need to be up to like 400 degrees or more, thereabouts. Even sticking a blade in boiling water is not going to be enough to anneal the blade. So no, a dishwasher is not going to soften the steel in your blade. It's just going to cause other problems that are just as bad in many cases. So,
if it's safe for Tupperware, it's probably safe for that, but don't put them in there.
Yeah. I mean, if you were getting to annealing temperatures, you'd be melting all the plastics probably in there too. Silicones, you might be okay, depending on what the actual temperature is, but just don't stick your knives in the dishwasher, man. I know this guy was not saying do that. He was saying don't do that, so at least we're on the right track there. Which brings us to our most serious question of the day. Actually, I have two today. I couldn't decide which one to go with. So we might as well read both, since I figured I was going to pick one before we got here, but I still have them both in my computer. So first one is from Thui. A boat made of LC200N or a house made of coated 1095? Discuss.
I'd take the boat, because imagine trying to insulate that house.
What if we combine it to be a houseboat made out of packawood?
It would float.
Dan Huff, most serious question. I often open bottles with the spine of a blade using my knuckle as a fulcrum. Closed folding knife works well for additional safety. Does this make all my knives multi-tools? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, what EDC fixed blade are you buying, Thomas, since you threw his on the ground in episode 68?
You did do that, didn't you?
Let me see. See, it's fine. It's as fine as it ever gets anyway.
I've done way worse to that thing.
That's all the time we have today, folks. Make sure to leave your questions down in the comments. And if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, except for Thomas's cool fixed blade that's back there somewhere, we'll leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. While you're over there, make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so that you can earn some free money to spend on your next knives when you buy one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas over there, being a smart aleck as always. See you next time.
Fun fact, bottle opener is also a hammer.
Bye.